BGP Next Hop Attribute. For eBGP, the next hop is always the IP address of the neighbor that the neighbor command specifies. But for iBGP, the protocol states that the next hop that eBGP advertises should be carried into iBGP. So let's talk about this first. This is the topology that we are going to use in this video. So eBGP. So it says that the next hop is always the IP address of the neighbor that the neighbor command specifies. So let's check that. I'm going to R1 here. R1 is in AS1 and R2, R3, R4 are in AS234 and AS5, I mean R5 is in AS5. So let me go to AS1 and check the connectivity or its neighborship with R2. So show IP, I mean show run. Oops. Okay, so we see that we are advertising this network into BGP, and let's check the show IP, the BGP table, and we see that the next hop for that is this, which is expected. But if I go to, if I go to R2 and check its BGP table, I see that the next hop is this, and the neighbor is actually this. So going back here, the next hop is always the IP of the neighbor. For eBGP, the next hop is always the IP address of the neighbor that the neighbor command specifies. So that is true. We have verified that. So neighbor, and it's the next hop to get to this IP here or this host route. Yeah. Okay. For iBGP, the protocol states that the next hop that eBGP advertises should be carried into iBGP. So meaning that the next hop, the eBGP router, speaking router, will be carried into iBGP. So going back here, so meaning that by default R2, if it advertises uh, this loopback here address to R3 and R4, the check here, the next hop for that route will not be changed. So let's check that. So R2 is oops. So R2 has a iBGP neighborship with R3 and R4, and it's advertising. Okay, hold on. Yes, so it should be advertising that route, right? So let me check this host here. So let's check this advertise routes. Yeah, so it's advertising this route to this neighbor and this route to this neighbor. Uh, so 3.3.3.3 is actually R3 and 4.4.4.4 is R4. So let me go to R3 and see its BGP table. So we see here that the next hop to get to this route is actually R1, right? 10.10.12.1. So, and it's installed, it's in its routing table, okay? But if I go to R4, yeah, um, to get to this route, the next step is this. So the reason for this is because I actually, before the video, I think I forgot to remove it. Yeah, it's still here. So this is actually one of the methods that we are going to use or actually talk about in this video, but I just forgot to remove it. So let me remove it first because R2 is actually advertising this network, which is the IP address, I mean R1 IP address belongs to. So let me remove that so that R3 will not install this in its routing table and also R4. Yeah, so let me actually do, let me clear the session and let's check R3 now. Okay, so now this route is not being installed in the routing table. Yeah, it's not here anymore. And also R4 should have the same situation. Yeah, it's not there anymore. Or that. Yeah. So asterisk meaning it's valid but it's not best. So it didn't install it. R4 didn't install it in the routing table. And of course same with R3, right? Yeah, here. Same. Okay, so now like what I've written here, there are two ways to make sure that you do not have problems reaching the eBGP next hop. One is use the uh, next hop self command, neighbor command to force the router to advertise itself rather than the external peer as the next hop. So meaning that R2, if we configure next hop self uh, neighbor command on R2, R2 will force itself to be the next hop uh, for the route that it advertises to both R3 and R4. That's one method uh, or way. The other way is actually like what you saw earlier, advertise the network that the next hop belongs to. So in this case, uh, 10.10.12.1 belongs to this network, right? So you have to include or advertise the network uh, into the iBGP protocol or yeah into the iBGP protocol or iBGP. So when I say IGP here, you could use OSPF or ARGRP as well. Okay, so going back um, to this method, there are two methods. Actually, I'm gonna say methods instead. So I'm going to configure to make this configuration on R2. Yeah, and this is on R2 as well. So I'm just gonna copy and paste to make it faster. Okay, and then clear the session with this neighbor R3 and R4. Clear. So now when we check that route again from R3, we will see that the next hop is not will be R2, which is this here. And this route is now in the routing table of R3, which is expected. And if I go to R4, I should see the same. Yeah, so yeah. So to get to this route, I need to get to R2. Let me go to R3. Yeah, so let me check the routing table as well. Yeah, to get to this route, I need to get to the next hop is R2. So yeah, that's all for next hop self command, neighbor command. Next is I already showed it earlier, but I'm going to do it again. So I'm going to actually remove this first. Okay, I'm going to R2. Okay, done. So no next hop command anymore. So now let me actually do this again. Go to R3, just R3. And the next hop to get to this route is actually now R1, right? R1 here, 10.10.12.1. And if I go to R4, I should see the same situation. R4, hold on. Okay, so I guess it just it took a while. It took some time. So now I don't see that route actually. Yeah. So this is the correct situation, which is this route should be in the BGP table, but not in the routing table. Yeah. So same with R4. Yeah, not in BGP table, but not in the routing table. Okay, so let's do the second method, which is this. So I'm just going to copy and paste. Okay, done. And I'm going to clear the session between R3 and R4. So it says here that the protocol states that the next hop that eBGP advertises, which in this case is R1, should be carried into iBGP. So we should see that R2 should be able to install that route in its routing table, but the next hop is actually R1 because of this rule here, right? And hold on. Actually, I was gonna check R3 here. So to get to this route in its is in R3's routing table, but the next hop now is actually R1, and we should see the same on R4. Yeah. So to get to this route, the next hop is R1. So if I ping that route, I should be able to ping it, right? And go to R5 and ping that IP address, I should be able to ping it as well. If I check the routing table, so the next hop to get to this route is actually R4, which is fine, which is expected. So yeah, that's it for BGP Next Hop Attribute. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you have, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you haven't. Thanks for watching. See you next time.